In 1861, Abraham Lincoln became president. The southern states left to make their own country, and soon the North and South were at war. At first, no one thought that the war would last long, but battles were fought all across the country for the next 4 years. In 1865, the North was led by Ulysses S. Grant. The South was led by Robert E. Lee. After years of fighting, Grant defeated Lee in Petersburg, Virginia. Grant then chased Lee's army across the countryside until he trapped him near Appomattox courthouse. Lee had no choice but to give up. They agreed to meet at the McLean house to discuss the surrender of Lee's army. This meeting between Grant and Lee is one of the most famous moments in American history. Though they had been arch enemies for years, Grant was merciful to Lee and his men. He allowed the whole entire army to go home peacefully. Lee signed papers of surrender, and the Great Civil War would finally end. The Confederate Army had to give up their rifles and promise to never again fight against the United States. In exchange, they were given parole papers, which meant they could go home freely. 30,000 parole papers were printed at the Clover Hills Tavern. Now they were free to go home and work. These buildings can be seen today at Appomattox Courthouse National Historical Park. Let's go visit the park! Here we are. Let's go check it out.
Welcome to Appomattox.
This is called the village. The village is a bunch of buildings at the center of Appomattox. Let's start with the old courthouse, which is now where you can find the visitor center. The final surrender was signed on this table. What was the final surrender?
General Robert E. Lee had agreed to discuss the surrender of the Army of Northern Virginia, and on the afternoon of Sunday, April 9th.
Here's the McLean house, where the surrender actually happened. This is where Grant and Lee met. All the furniture was taken for souvenirs after the surrender was signed, leaving poor Mr. McLean with nowhere to sit. But historians have refurnished the site the best they could. This is where the war ended, and General Grant was really generous, and he let them keep their horses and guns, but they had to leave their rifles and cannons.
Appomattox.
Next we'll visit Clover Hill Tavern. Do you remember what happened here? This is where they printed parole paper for the Confederate Army.
Confederate Army.
The Confederate soldiers needed a parole pass to get home.
Oh.
There are many other buildings to see. Here's a storehouse. The home of the enslaved people. And even a prison. We're in the Appomattox prison.
I want to get out now.
Okay, let's go. Yes, we're free. We got our parole pass. We're free to go home.
Hooray!
But freedom for all Americans began with the war that ended here. There was a legend that The surrender took place under an apple tree right here. People cut down the apple tree for souvenirs. Years later, General Grant said that it was a good story, but it isn't true. See you on the next part!